Okay, good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. Can you hear me online? Again, welcome all to the September meeting. Gavel. I'm good. I'll be patient. I got nowhere to go.
Oh crap! Those are triple.
My commanding voice. I don't have a commanding voice.
Those are
or a commanding
A's.
presence. So
we need double A's. Yeah. Yeah.
We still have people wandering in, but
turn off.
Yeah, we're gonna get started. Well, thank you all for coming. And I heard the bridge was out, so we may have some late arrivals, but that's okay. I'd like to start the meeting with just a moment of silence out of respect for the lives lost 20 years ago today and all the brave first responders who responded. And hope we never see that again in this country. So if we could just be silent for just a moment to remember any people we knew or people we didn't know. Thank you so much. I guess we all remember where we were that day. I was at work and up in Philly, in my clinic up in Philly, and I remember when the first plane hit and people were like, "Oh my," and then the second plane hit, and it was clear there was chaos ensuing, and surely it was a couple days of chaos, and then I remembered people coming. I can remember the country was unified and people were unified working together against, sort of coming out of that and against the common evil, I guess, and it would be nice to see America get back to that for sure, so there's a lot of chaos in the world again today, and you hope that people can come together and work against some of the chaos that's out there and also work towards a common good of working together. So, anyway.
Speaking of chaos, our apiary yard.
Oh yeah, so a little update. I'll give an update on that. Just a brief agenda for today. We're going to start with a bit of business for what's coming up at the CCBA for the first 20 minutes or so and updates on some things. And then we're going to move into a panel discussion, which Paul is going to lead. So we're going to do a panel discussion on feeding since it is September and surely winter. We're all thinking about getting our bees through the winter and how to do that and strategies to do that, and potentially feeding them would be one. So, and then after that, we're going to go to breakout. So 10 o'clock is going to be breakout rooms. So the breakout rooms that we have is Keith is going to do advanced. Russ is going to do the beginner group, and the beginner group is going to meet in that back corner. And with Tom, I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't see you sneak in. So Tom and Russ are going to do the beginner group back in that corner. I think maybe Keith will do the advanced group.
Depends on what the online folks want to see.
Right, and then about where Keith is, and then we're going to have the plant sale too. So anybody who wants plants, Carla, where's Carla? Carla is around somewhere. But Carla and Jesse and Jack are going to be doing the plant sale in the back. Obviously, I don't have to tell you where the plant sale is going to be. I think, I don't know, the crowd's not that big. We surely want everybody who wants plants to take plants, but we don't want somebody to take all the plants. So, kind of work with Carla and see how it goes. Right, Carla, is that the message?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to bring home plants.
Yeah, we don't want to bring home plants. My wife does not want any more plants or bee stuff. So I think the large plants are $10. They're all native, so the large plants are $10 and the small plugs are $2. They're incredible prices. You won't find them anywhere else. They're all local natives and they're incredibly healthy. They come from North Creek and Octoraro native plant farm. So both out in Oxford area, great places. I mean, terrific people, great places. We were there yesterday. Oh, they were so friendly and so happy that we were picking up plants. So they're great benefit. I think through the years, Jack's written all the checks. I think we're probably up over $20,000 worth of plants sold. So it's a great thing for the members. Loss at the apiary. Again, most of you have been following along. You know, the apiary flooded, and we think that the water was about 5 or 6 feet high, just based on the mud marks on the trees and stuff like that. And that water basically came right through our apiary and sort of took all the hives and pushed them up against the fence line, and probably some well, we know some hives went over the fence line and kept going downstream. So we had 16 hives and 21 newts there. Everything was pushed over, everything was flooded. And as of yesterday, we have out of the 16 hives, we have 4 hives that are queen right, and 2 hives that have queen cells in them. So that's 17 to 6, and maybe less. And of the 21 nukes, we have 10 nukes, and I think 3 have queen cells in them. So, you know, we took a significant amount of loss from that. Thanks to those, I see a few of you. I don't need to go through the names of everybody, but there's definitely been people who've been showing up on short notice and kind of helping with the cleanup, which is a total mess, right? So we had about 300 frames that were full of maggots and water, and lots of hives that needed to be taken care of. So I think the work is getting close to being done. People are feeding. I know Steve's not here today, but Steve Amalang has a schedule of people who are volunteered to go out and feed the hive. So we're trying to feed them at least twice a week right now. So if anybody lives close or is willing to sort of do a session, you know, email Steve Amalang, and he'll put you on the list of people to feed. We treated all those hives. I wasn't sure about, so we treated all those hives this week. So all the hives have been treated for mites, and some of them have been, all of them have been fed 2 rounds. So I'm hoping that we'll have some that survive this, right? So people have asked if we would like bees or donate bees. A lot of people have been very kind with offering hives for us, or bees for us. And, you know, I kind of, you know, in times of stress, our worst qualities come out. So my worst qualities, I'll just deal with it myself, you know, and figure it out, you know. So that's been my response to people. Like, yeah, don't worry, we'll figure it out. But we're going to need some help. The question is what time, and what time is best for help. And having chatted with a few people, what we think we're going to do is we think we'll accept bees in the spring. So, and the idea is maybe people who are have bees, and come April and their population's building up and they want to do something about preventing swarming, and they want to make a split or you know, prevent their bees from swarming, we would take frames of brood. Again, that's open to change based on other people's input. So, you know, if you have ideas on how we can build things back up, I'm more than willing to listen. I talked to Jack about potentially offering money for people, you know, who donate frames of bees or something like that. So that's discussion ongoing, because obviously, as you know, what we don't hurt for is money in this club. So maybe we can do something like that. So for now, if you can help out by going out there and feeding, we may have 1 or 2 more work sessions just to clean up the rest of the mess. That would be appreciated. But other than that, I think we're good for now. We lost some broodminder equipment. So, you know, we had electronics on a lot of the hives. So Mark has recovered most of it, and believe it or not, it's hard to believe, but most of it actually works. So,
so we lost 6 devices that no longer function, 3 scales, they power on, but they give like minus 60 pounds, or on the two temperature devices and one temperature humidity device that just give bad readings. You know, it says it's minus 132 degrees. I think that's not right. Not in my little office. So we've got 6 devices out of probably 40. What I don't have a good count on is how much stuff we're actually missing that went downstream that is unrecoverable. And just an aside, Sunday, so the flood happened Wednesday. Sunday, we were stomping back through the woods, found another set of hives. And when I say another set, I mean 3 hives, 4 more hive bodies. Pulled one of those hives out that probably weighed 100 pounds, took it up, started, you know, shaking the water out of it. And sure enough, as we pulled the frame, there's a marked queen. That was, you know, 4 or 5 days after the flood. And that's one of the hives that's queen right.
Yes. So I've emailed Rich from Broodminder. You know, Rich has been sort of an advocate, you know, not an advocate, but has sort of been at our annual meeting, and has this year he gave a 15 or 20 whatever percent vote
15%
discount to the club members for Broodminder stuff. So I emailed Rich and asked Rich if he could do anything for the club, you know, to help us out, recover something. Not that we need to, but I'll keep people up to date on that, because that was a significant investment, and unfortunately some of that washed down the river with the bees. So any thoughts or questions about the or anything about the loss of the apiary? Anyone have thoughts on this? Yes.
Will those queen cells actually hatch and be viable before the season changes?
You know, that's a good question. I wondered that. If are the queen cells viable? I assume that those queen cells, they're capped. So all the queen cells are capped. So that means that they were formed, you know, 5 days ago or so, which would be right around maybe a day or so after the flood came. So was there viable brood in the hive for them to make queen cells? I assume. Sure. You know, I don't know, honestly.
Will they be able to go out and
mate
and do all that at this time of year?
Yeah, not ideally. I mean, surely this isn't the ideal time to make new queens, but there's still drones in the hives, and surely for those of you who've gone through your hives, your strong hives still have some capped drone brood in them, which was quite surprising. So I assume that they'll mate. The question I have is, okay, there's now going to be a brood break in those hives for 30 days about, you know, and without supplementing brood into those hives, are they going to have enough population to survive the winter? I don't know. So that would be one reason to maybe stick some brood in these hives to sort of help them out a little bit. Again, I'm open to people's thoughts and suggestions on this. You know, would that be a smart thing to do? Now, where we get bees and brood, it would be another question, because that's our site where we have our hives.
How many hives do you have that don't have queens or queen cells? Are there?
All those hives are gone. So if it didn't have,
well, are they gone, or are they just milling around?
The bees have found new. So the hives that are left there are really populated with bees right now. Yeah. Because all the ones that weren't rotting, I assume, flew and found another home. So the hives left there are pretty strong, but they're strong with whatever bees are left.
Because I remember so many were trying to get into one hive. They were just boiling over. Yeah. We assumed there was a queen in there. Yeah. But if they're surplus bees, can they be split around to some of the ones that need more? Need more bodies.
Maybe. And some of the, believe it or not, some of the nukes did better. The nukes did better than the full hives. And I can't really explain why that is, you know, whether or not it's because they were lighter and they floated better, or because they had smaller screens on the bottom, solid bottoms, and therefore they just sort of, you know, kind of floated instead of took on more water. They took on water slower, because the loss rate of the nukes is only 50%, while the loss rate of the bigger hives looks like 75%.
The lids stayed on, because they were
Yeah, they weren't strapped.
They weren't strapped.
So propolis is a good thing.
Love that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, propolis is a good thing, right? I assume that's what it was, you know, because a lot of the newts were just still, and they weren't strapped. The big hives were strapped, but none of the newts were strapped. Any other thoughts about apiary recovery?
Yeah, do we need to move?
Do we need to move? So Jack and I are going to meet with Sean, who's I don't know what Sean's official title is, but director of that, manager of the property, to discuss this. And his initial response to us was, thank you all for cleaning up the site. We really appreciate how fast your members sort of, but I don't think we have another site for you. You know, that site, I mean, Keith was involved in the selection of that site, and Paul was probably involved. You know, some of the older officers were involved with the selection of that site,
and we did a flood impact assessment on it, and we thought it would never flood. The distance, that whole area must have been almost covered with water.
5 feet. You can see the mud line.
Everything must be crazy about almost a mile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was the area closer to the
Road.
less?
It wasn't flooded.
Yeah,
So 50 feet to the 75 feet to the right, the water did not get up that high.
Sean didn't say no to that.
I didn't ask. We didn't ask him
That might
that.
be okay.
But we can
George, one of Sean's issues in terms of finding another site was that that's the only area that he can think of right now that will allow us to have sufficient parking.
Right.
We have events there. So it's not just finding room to put some hives, finding room to put some hives where they can also allow us to park.
But we can elevate them with decking. One of the original plans was to elevate the hives. So you walk up like a deck and then elevate it about this around. It'd be nice to make it something like that.
It'd be challenging, right? To sort of think, okay, now this happened and what we're going to do in response to it, you know?
Permanent structure. So they don't want permanent structure.
Right.
Something that has to be able to dedicate this matter.
So it did, from looking at the site on the day after, 2 days after it flooded, it definitely looked like closer to the road was definitely spare. So is it worth picking up the site and moving it 100 feet to the right? So A, it's work. B, I guess there's no guarantee that the next flood doesn't wash out 100 feet to the right. C, you potentially invite more problems, right? Because closer to the road is going to visually, and is that a good thing or a bad thing? You know, I mean, for most beekeepers, that we would probably say we don't want people knowing that our, hives are there. So I don't know. If I was to do this again, right, and if I knew what the outcome was going to happen, I would have just got a few of us who had trailers, go to the site and just pick up the hives and move the hives off the site and then put them back, and that would not have been hard to do, right? That would have been a little bit of work to do, and so I wonder if that at the end of the day is the better response. It's just either next hurricane, just go and move the hives.
George, this is the biggest flood in 150 years. I've lived here most of my life, and I've never seen a flood like it. Northbrook Bridge was also a very common bridge, and that's never happened that I've ever seen. So 150 years is a long time to wait. I think it's probably okay.
I would add to that I would question overreacting in that 150-year event that, I'm sure somewhere the county has projections on the floodplains, what the possibilities of flooding is. Because that's an important part of building permits, insurance, and so forth. And as you pointed out, with notice, we have what's called an emergency squad, a call squad. The colonies are arranged in a way and on a platform where they're easy to pick up. They're easy to pick up. with a hive lifter, 30 colonies, with 4 or 5 people and a trailer, you could be in there in 30 to 60 minutes and have them loaded.
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect, I mean, the amount of time that's been spent at this apiary post-flood, I wish I had some insight and just took the hives out of there.
We never ever expected that. We never expected that.
To me, that's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, if you go there, if you go there now and you have a look, you think it's impossible.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
What about simple surveillance? I mean, that may have helped. Because it was quite a long time before, because my neighbor walked by and saw it. Nobody really knew what was happening for hours.
Yeah, you could tell on the brood minder when the hives floated away. It was like Wednesday night at 10 o'clock. All of a sudden, the scales stopped. You know, so yeah, there was probably some time in there that someone could have said, "Hey, look, you know, what's going on? You know, what's going to happen here? You know." But
yesterday, I drove up through Kirkwood.
But we learned something, right? We learned a little bit through this. I think.
Kirkwood.
Mm-hmm.
There was significant flood damage. It's more mountainous up there, but it's raining in this direction. There was significant damage up there by erosion and so forth. That water, when that happens upstream, it takes a certain amount of time for that water to end up into a floodplain. And with some linkage, we have to research with fire departments, any emergency responders north of us. When they see this happening, we could know almost instantly, probably.
Yeah.
And
move the hive.
Respond at that time.
Yeah. Move the hive.
There's water coming.
But so
just build a high stand hive because the influence so you can have a big plant. A little platform that you can work on the hive. This would be fun.
Could be fun. We could do one and see. we could build one of those stands and leave those hives there. But to me, if the flood's coming again, I'm moving the hives. You know, no matter what stand they're on. You know, I mean, this has been sort of a painful experience to go do, you know, cleanup of these hives. So, what do people think about donating brood in the spring to rebuild it?
Sure. You can have 30% of my nukes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just as a swarm management technique for people. I know a lot of you know, the backyard beekeepers in the club already, because they practice good beekeeping, already have too many hives and, you know, and want to downsize a little bit. So this may be a good way to prevent swarming and to downsize. So, and then what we thought is we would do our first round of queen rearing in early April, and then all this brood we would just put in queen cells and just make new hives. So I think that's the way to recover from this. Should we put brood in them now? Any thoughts on that?
If you don't think they're gonna have enough, you know, there's gonna be a 30-day break.
Right.
Whether or not they're gonna be able to keep up with everything, it wouldn't hurt to put bees in and a little brood.
You know, my hesitation to do that was, one, the hives now need brood to get through the winter, so I don't want to take from Carol's hives to help my hives and have her hives not be populated enough, you know? So you're taking from something that's good and giving it to something that's maybe not going to survive. And in medicine, you'd sort of think about if that would be a good thing or not, you know, if you're out in crisis land. So that'd be one issue. And two, we're taking on if someone hasn't been done good with their mites and done good with their disease management, we're taking on that into the apiary too. So they were the reasons not to do it. So I welcome people's thoughts about it, because I mean, we could still ask for brood now if people thought that was a good thing to do. I'm looking for more of the senior beekeepers' thoughts on this one, you know, because
I would suggest only as an experiment. You know, if you want to try something just for the sake of trying it, but come spring, I mean, everyone is busy with swarm control, as mentioned. And in the spring, the brood and bees invested in given by members in the spring, we can almost guarantee a positive result.
Right.
Rather than taking, as you mentioned, resources and throwing it into a short situation.
Right. That's why up to now I haven't asked people to donate food because
Oh, okay, I understand. I know.
Yeah, I don't want to hurt somebody's hive's chances of survival.
How many frames of drone cone do you have?
Hundreds.
Oh, really?
Hundreds.
So you're good on the drone cone, you just don't have the
These, yeah. So we recovered most of the woodenware and frames. So we have hundreds of drawn comb that is just, and we may be able to do an exchange next year, you know, comb for bees, you know. Yeah, yeah, or people looking for comb because we have a ton of comb right now. Yeah. I don't know, but cool. So it seems like so far the plan is okay. So anyway, a couple other things. The Kimberton Whole Foods, right? Kimberton, right, Jack?
Yes.
Is doing rounding up this month for Chester County. You want to give a brief update on what we agreed to because I'm not a deep, you know, just so people know.
He can stand between them.
Okay. So Kimberton Whole Foods in their Downingtown store, each month they choose a charity, and any customer comes into the store during that month, they ask the customer if they would like to round up their purchase, whatever their total purchase is, to the next nearest dollar. And then they donate that money to that chosen charity, and Kimberton Whole Foods matches that amount. So it doubles the money. And they selected us to be the charity for the month of September. After the floods in Downingtown and Coatesville, the area served by that store, were particularly hard hit by the flood. We all know that. And so they contacted us, I think on the 6th or 5th or 6th of this month, and said, given the damage and the need that local residents have to repair what happened there, they were going to suspend the program of giving that charity money and the matching to us for 1 week. Would we be okay with that? George and I talked about it, and we decided that our reply to them would be, we'd be fine if you take the matching money for the entire month and give that to the community who's in need. So that's where we are.
Yeah, just so people are aware. So if you're shopping this month and you're around Kimberton Whole Foods, you can go ahead and go on and support that. And realize that if you're giving to the CCBA, you're also giving to the community for this month.
That program is only in their Downingtown store.
Okay.
They have 4 stores.
Right. That money, so people that, you know, we use that in our grant. We use some of that in our grant program, which will be run next year. This year we gave $6,000 in grant program, and we also saved the bees. I don't know what this year our Save the Bee sort of allocation from that. I think, Jack, really quick, how much money have we taken from the Save the Bee fund and given out this year? 4,000.
We've committed 6.
6,000.
We've spent 4 so far.
So again, just basically trying to give to local groups that are doing pollinator stuff or planting things. So just so you know, the gala is going to go happen 9/25. So September 25th, Saturday from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. We're going to do the gala at my place again. Ed is going to be doing, instead of Walt's committed this year to another event, so there will not be a pig, but Ed Sharp is going to do brisket and other pork things. So Ed's going to be doing the meat, and there'll be live music this year. So we have a 3-person sort of local band that's going to be playing, and it's going to be a great time. The event is not quite up yet on the event calendar, but some point this weekend, I'll send out a blast so people can register for the event. The event this year is only going to be $10 instead of $25. So we cut the price down just because we just felt like that was the right thing to do, you know, so it's down to $10 and we have a 70-person limit. So we've never had more than 70 people sign up. So hopefully this year, everybody who wants to come can come, but we do have a 70-person limit just because my backyard can hold about 70 and whatever.
What about kids?
I don't, in the past, there's, if you want to bring kids, that's fine. I'm going to take, I only have one child at home now, so Angela, and she won't be there. So she won't be there to entertain anybody. So those of you know Angela know that she's great at entertaining and keeping people sort of busy and happy, but she won't be there. So if you want to bring kids, I don't know, whatever. As far as COVID, I put that survey up online, you know, just to see kind of the responses of the club members to mask or not mask. Most people wanted me to mandate the mask, but I'm going to sort of decide to leave it as sort of your own personal choice and responsibility at the end of the day. You know, if you're sick, obviously don't come. Whatever. I don't want to get into the politics of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, but anyway, don't come if you're sick. Apprentice program, those are the apprentice program. I think we have 40 some in the apprentice program, Walt, this year. 40 some people. Yeah. You know, the apprentice program is usually successful and popular. If you're in the apprentice program, we may have a delay in getting you a nuke next year. So hopefully that makes common sense to people. Like, okay, there's no bees. You know, we may take a little bit to get you bees, but we will get you bees. When we'll get you bees, it may not be April when we'll get you bees. It may be May, it may be June, just to let people know. But if you successfully finish the apprentice program this year, you will get your nuke. It just may be delayed. But that's like if you buy a nuke, right? I mean, the same thing happens. If you buy a nuke from Georgia, that nuke may not get here for a month or two based on the weather. So I just putting it out there because I know some people are going to be upset about that. There's nothing I can do. You know, we don't have the bees right now. I think that's. Oh, we're gonna try a new event in October just to let people know. We're gonna do a plant and mead swap. Yeah, so this is gonna be new. We're gonna combine a plant swap and a mead swap. So if anybody wants to help us sort of figure that one out, here's your plant, here's your mead. You know, be happy. You know, something like that. If anybody's willing to sort of help us figure out what that looks like and where that's going to be, let me know, because I'm hoping it could be fun. And we know that there's lots of mead makers in the club, and we've never really kind of figured out how to get them all together and do that. But I think that would be a fun event to do. So if there are any mead makers or plant people, because we tried to do a plant swap early in the year, and I think 5 people showed up for the plant swap. So I figured if we add some meat into it, maybe it'll be more popular.
I think there were 8, George.
8, sorry. I'm the pessimist. So look for that event in October.
We'll also need a list of designated drivers.
Yeah, or a place to crash, you know, that night if the event can have a.
First, you want to do the meat swap first. Every inebriated, then do the plant swap, because they're more likely to find.
Maybe that's the order, correct? So I saw Michael Langer. Doesn't he have a big farm in somewhere? A meat and a plant swap at your place. Think about it. Awesome. As far as business, any other business?
Good.
Any other business? Mark? Kathy, any other business? Yes, there is another business item.
One little thing.
Yes.
We agreed to participate in the Helicopter Museum in Westchester. They've got a family fun fest coming up in October. So we booked a table for both days. We're going to put it out to the membership. If you want to volunteer to run the table, you would also have the opportunity to sell your honey there. We still have a couple final details to work out, but as long as you promote the club and explain the observation time for kids. I'm sorry.
What day is that?
October.
Sometime in October.
Sometime in October, Kathy.
It's like around the 23rd, whatever that weekend is.
All right.
So it's Saturday and Sunday, and depending on interest, we'll
And maybe you could be more than one person, right?
yeah, I told them that we would be happy to be outside, and if she needs to fill space, we can take 2 tables where you'd be. I was like, we can bring plenty of stuff to share.
So if you have honey to sell.
Yeah,
I'm going to say, being an aviation guy.
Mm-hmm.
Put me on the list.
Put Merle on the list.
Put me on the list.
Thank you, Kathy. I that was on my brain, but somehow I didn't make my list. Anything else, Kathy?
No.
Jack, anything? I know there's 1 or 2 things that I've forgotten, so I'm sure Jack will bring them up because I know what they are now. So sorry about the business side of things, but I think it's important to get this information out there and have people hear it.
As part of the Kipperton Whole Foods promotion, they've invited us to set up a table right outside the store to educate people about bees, sell some honey. It's limited probably to no more than 3 or 4 people. I think the date is Sunday. Sunday is the 26th of September. Or
yes, 26th. Sunday
the 26th of September. And if anybody's interested in staffing the table, I think it's for 2 hours in the afternoon, 1 to 3 p.m. I believe.
So that's
you
a
were
new
there last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll do it again.
Okay.
That's a new development because initially they said they weren't going to give us a table.
Right.
Okay.
We talked them into it.
We'll raise more money
when you gave
outside the store.
All right. So if anybody's interested in participating in that, let me know.
So opportunities to do a little education and sell some honey. So good, 2 good things. One last business thing before we move into feeding panel. We have our board elections coming up in November. November is our annual business meeting where we hold our elections for the board of directors. We will have 2 spots open on the board this year. So if anybody is interested in running for the board, you're going to need to get a couple signatures. And there's a form online that we'll put up for people, of club members. But we really need people to run for the board. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Jack feels like he wants to say something more intelligent.
I can add something.
Okay.
Is that I, as a board member, and looking at the club population, I would really
just need to get these guys out of here.
More female representation on the board. And to do that, fill out the application. Consider it. It's a very, being on the board for since we beginning, it's a very worthwhile endeavor, and you will enjoy it. Yeah, assuming you'll get elected. Thank you.
And I would just add to that being on the board of directors does not get involved in day-to-day club activities. So it's not looking at a big commitment. The board meets often by phone or by Zoom, occasionally in person if needed, 4 to 6 times a year, and that's it. For an hour or 2. So it's not a huge commitment. The board sets the strategic direction for the club. So if you're interested in playing a part in the strategic direction of where the club is going, consider running for the board.
And what we're looking for is analytical, creative thinking.
You don't need to know anything about bees.
Yeah, that's right.
To be on the board, honestly. A little bit helps, right? A little bit about a little bit, but not much. So don't be intimidated because you're a first year or second year beekeeper and you feel like you're sitting on a board with Keith and Merle and experts. Well, we need some experts, but we also need some people that are just able to just have vision and have community connections and just get things done. We really do, so I'll put a plug out for that. The other thing, before we move on, because I just winded, the work of the club is a lot. those of you in the room, often past presidents or past officers, know how much work there is in the club, and luckily we have a bunch of people that do a fair amount of work, but we need more people to step up and get involved with the day-to-day running of the club. That's all, you know, otherwise it becomes way too much work, you know. And I have to be honest, I mean, I think both Keith and Merle, our immediate past presidents, have been there where you think to yourself, it's too much, you know. It just you feel like your backpack on the back is too heavy, you know, some days in this club, because we have 700 members, we have so much going on, and just with this event of the apiary washing away, if it was just 2 people to clean that mess up, it would have been days worth of work, you know. So granted, it wasn't a large crowd, but there was enough people there. So when I put out an email at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning asking for something, please, if you have something to give, you know, please consider stepping up and getting involved and taking that piece on, because if somebody doesn't do it, it falls to me as president, and Keith can attest to that. You know, I mean, if no one volunteers, it falls on the president, and it feels, in the last month or so, I felt it. So that's just my own personal plea to sort of, you know, when the email comes, think about responding and saying, maybe I can help do that. Anyway, enough said. So I'm speaking to the choir, because a lot of people I know personally in here. You guys have helped me out through the years, so I speak to those people online and everybody in some way. So
speaking to the presidency and experience with it, I can vouch for it is a full-time job. If I was getting paid going to work at the time I was president, luckily I was retired, but the commitment mentally and time was a 40-hour week. Now, not all of them, you know, I might have had a 10-hour week, but it was made up for a 60-hour week at some particular time during the year. So that's why we need help.
Yeah, and you know, don't be afraid to say, if you're not an expert, or any help is better than me doing it on some days, you know what I mean? Just because, anyway, hopefully someone will be able to follow in my footsteps and be president one day and know what Merle and Keith and I are talking about. We're a 700 member club with a lot of stuff going on. So anyway, thanks for everyone who volunteered. So I'm going to shut up because I'm way over time. So we're going to turn it over to Paul to.
Before you do, new members.
Oh, that's true. Anyone new here? Yes. Introduce yourself briefly.
Yes, hi. My name is Jennifer, and I live in 60 acres, and so I'm interested in finding out about beekeeping bees.
Do you have bees yet?
No.
You're salivating, you know? Welcome.
I will say, I'm sorry, folks, but I could not respond to your email yet because I was planning to ask today when we're scheduling the beginner's class for next year.
I think you could sign up for the apprentice program now, right? Well, yeah, so you can go online and sign up for the apprentice program if that's what you want to do. The beginners program will probably, signing up for the beginners program next year will be in probably the new year, January, February sometime. Again, the apprentice program is one-on-one, sort of traditional apprentice-like learning, and the beginners program is a group monthly learning. So different people learn different ways. So welcome. A new member.
I have 5 hives after I had 3 who died because I was not aware of the proper way to do it. This year
Excellent. Thank you, Ernie, for being a wonderful teacher. So, you know, give the apprentice program's terrific. For the, you know, you get signed up, you work with somebody for a year. That's the right way to learn beekeeping, I think, is being an apprentice to a master or to a teacher. And that idea was initially generated by Jack, just so people know, and then executed brilliantly, of course, by Walt. So, and I just sort of keep the fire lit and going. So, I think in the 2 years we probably had over 50, if not 60 apprentices through the program. And when you talk to the apprentices, their hives live, right? So the people that actually do the apprentice program really, you learn how to keep hives alive.
That's the problem.
Learn how to keep their hives productive. While those trying to figure it out by themselves, it's a journey.
We're hearing that. No, we're not. We're hearing this.
Oh, I'm a mess. Okay, so we're gonna give feeding a half an hour. So we're gonna push everything back a little bit because we started late, and I'm verbose. So take it away, Paul.
And the first thing I'll do is invite our bee gurus up here to lead the panel discussion. We have Keith and Merle that are going to talk to us about fall feeding, getting ready for winter.
Just a show of hands, how many of you feed towards winter? So around about this time, how many are concentrating on feeding, and how many are not? How many are not going to feed? With the not feeding, we might have 2 or 3 people not feeding. The majority do feed. Now, what we can do with feeding is you don't have to feed. There's a group, you can go online, and there are people that don't feed their bees. Now, in our area, the Chester County beekeeping area that we've got here, it might be different to other areas. One of the things that we do notice with beekeeping here is that we don't have much of a fall flow. So there's not much nectar coming in. Now things do change. Notice the previous 2 years, we do have different types of nectar coming in, spotted lanternfly, and things are changing. So maybe in the future with more spotted lanternfly, maybe we don't need to feed as much, but we can discuss this. It's a really involved topic that there are a lot of different opinions in this. Yeah, and feel free to ask questions. Merle will give his option as well.
My opening statement here. First and foremost, we need to feed with a purpose. We have to define a goal, and that goal actually is next spring. We're looking in beekeeping, we're always looking forward at least 6 months, or certainly I am. And my feeding program is going to be geared toward that. A second departure from the common thought in feeding and whatnot, we often talk about feeding to build the weight of the colony for overwintering stores and whatnot. I don't see any purpose. In fact, I would prefer to have the bees starting to come up short in even January at Christmas time. The reason is that I'm going to, the feeding I do is going to be manipulated for healthy bees, not for putting weight in the boxes. Because come January, right after Christmas, January, early, I can go do a quick assessment, weight check on the colonies. Any colony light, I can simply drop on a spacer, drop on a sugar block, and they're good to go. And my goal is, my feeding is such as that the boxes, the comb, the brood comb in particular, is empty. I want that box pretty much empty, because come spring and come the build up, they're going to have the greatest possible amount of room for the queen when they start laying and building up. In a nutshell.
Mine's virtually exactly the opposite. So I want to get my bees in such a state that I don't worry in January, February, March. They've got so much food, they've got so much space that I'm not worried at all.
Yeah.
And one of the primary
I don't worry, Joe. I have no worries whatsoever. But
okay, so let's look at the basics. And
Yeah.
Merle said what he said was correct. We must look at our feeding, how we feed and what we feed as having dual purposes. And it's not only for putting weight on the hive. Now, one thing that you're guaranteed to kill your hive, probably the most important thing together with varroa treatment, is make sure that your bees have enough food. Okay, whether you put supplementary feed or not, make sure they have enough food. If they don't have enough food, they die. Okay, it's as simple as that. You don't feed, they die. In our area, I do a lot of cutouts. So we go in, bees have made their home in a tree, in somebody's sofa area. And when I do a cutout this time of year, those bees have no chance of surviving the winter. You cut them out, you get 1 pound of honey. You might get 10 pounds of honey. They have not put enough honey away. As I said before, our area does not have a major flow later in. Like now you'll see a bit of nectar coming in, but it's not much to store and to survive throughout the winter. Now, I regard the most important thing with feeding, and I've been feeding now all my hives probably for the last 3 weeks. Why do I feed? Okay, I want to stimulate brood. I want them to have young bees. Young bees overwinter far better. Okay, and remember, my hives survive. I get through from now through to springtime. In the last 4 years, I've not lost a single nucleus hive. Okay, so my nucleus hives survive. My average probably is losses of nothing to about 5%. So I'm losing virtually no hives. Okay. And the secret behind this is you feed now, because what happens, it stimulates the queen to lay eggs. Therefore, there are younger bees coming up, and the younger bees are more likely to be alive in March. So if the queen lays eggs now, those bees are the ones that are going to be foraging on the early warm days in March. So it is vitally important for me to feed. I build my colonies bigger than probably the standard one because I'm feeding now. And the proportion of the bees, you have young bees, and the young bees will survive. Even if I have a queen loss. Now, 1 in 20 queens generally dies over the winter. It's a hazard that we have. But because you're having a strong colony, all you need to do is requeen that colony in March or April. Okay, so the main structure, and I always look at the hive, the colony as such, as almost like a medieval city. So you can imagine a medieval city that you have as us as humans. Your winter period is 40 to 50 years. Okay. So imagine you will get older and older and older and older. So if you can have a young population when you go into the 40 or 50 year period of extreme winter, and also remember that you prefer your medieval village or your city that you have, it's more than likely that they will survive better if they have young people right in the very beginning. Because you know, if you look at a 40, 50 years, if you take a 40-year-old person, you know, it's not very good by the time they get to the end of that. So it's the same with bees. If you look at the life cycle of the bees, they've got to survive all the way through to when brood rearing starts in roughly middle of February. So our brood rearing, the queen starts laying in a colony, starts around about 1st to the 20th of February, depends on the weather. Yeah. So
I will counter that based on inspections. Now, keep in mind, I am 1 hour's drive south of here, a bit lower altitude. I have brood in the colonies through the winter. There is no true, there's a brood reduction, but there's no true broodless period in my area in my colonies and pockets.
Yeah, Mo comes from, it's warm,
Yeah,
it's further
yeah.
down south. He's
Yeah.
right on the Chesapeake area.
Yeah.
Our ones, we generally are brood free from about sometimes as early as November, sometimes October. We had snow in October here, so that might cause the complete brood break. And generally by the 15th of December, when we do the treatments, we are totally brood free. So, and we know, we watch, although you shouldn't be opening your hives that much, we know that the queens are laying round about 9th, 10th of February.
Yeah.
So that's what we aim at, and that's what we see in our colony.
Yeah, and I do, I spoke of that Christmas, let's call it the Christmas check, the bee check. I do open the boxes, I do look, I do see brood. And that's, I'm making an evaluation basically on health and the amount of weight or food on the colony, but also not doing any what we could call precise mite checks, but the health of the colony will give a reflection on where they might stand with mites. Now, something that Keith mentioned to really keep in mind, we're talking about building up population with that feeding, new young bees. To do that successfully, we have to remember our mite program has to be on track. If we're producing bees simultaneously producing mites because of this push brood production, we probably are not going to win at the end of the day. Mites are that important. And the more brood, the more mites. You know,
that's one of the negative sides of feeding, is that you will probably accelerate the mites.
Yeah.
But I mean, you virtually, with the 3 cycles of treatments that you do, and especially the December 15th, once you do the oxalic acid dribble on that, you're virtually mite free. So once the brood stops, we treat, and there's virtually no mites from that stage.
Yeah, I find the comment mite free is sort of a stretch.
Question from online. Are younger bees more sensitive to mite treatments?
Not that I've experienced, but
that'd be interesting.
It would be interesting, but I have to say, I have never read any information relating to that.
The varroa mite would be more attracted to the younger bees because of the fact that they're the ones that are the nurse bees.
Yeah. Right.
So, but then as they grow older, the mites will not be on. It's not to the interest going after a forager unless there's a collapse in colony.
Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to make a pitch for the bee chat, because last night we had a really in-depth discussion on this subject about mites and Bredick mites and which is more critical and so forth. And the opinions presented were supported with papers. And I like to see that. You know, if someone digs in their heels, I'd like to say, show me the paper. Not that that's 100% proof, but I think it's a bar that should be crossed. You know, when we start digging in our heels, we really should have something to back it up. So, bee chat.
Okay, any questions? What do we feed the bees? Okay, from Howard right at the back.
Let's talk about different kind of feeders.
Okay, if you look at the different feeders, one of the interesting things with fall feeding is that the bees will take the sugar water or the whatever you're feeding with from the bottom of the hive easier than one on the top of the hive. We don't notice that much difference, not a major thing. But what the bees are trying to do is redistribute honey exactly where they need it. And on a normal hive, because of wintering, we'd often want the honey to be above the bees. Because you can imagine the cluster forming. It is easier for the cluster to move up to new honey on a very cold winter than for them to move down. Okay, because remember, heat rises, so it's easier for a hive. And that's why often in the beginning of the season, beginning of winter, we'll rearrange that the top of the hive all has honey at the top. And we try to put the cluster down below with honey on either side of the cluster. So this time of year, or as soon as the cold weather comes, they will take honey that's maybe below in the hive and they will redistribute it higher up in the hive. So if we're feeding, well, not that I do this, but you can feed with an in-hive feeder at the bottom. Now, what feeders do we have? I use what is the old-fashioned term is a Miller feeder. All my big colonies have a 4-gallon Miller feeder on the top. Okay. Also have in-hive feeders as well. That are these. They look like very big frames. They go in. That is more for nucleus hives, and you can use other techniques. The one that we must not use is the one called the Boardman feeder. At this time of year, it is the one that's sold with every beginner kit and should only ever be used with fresh water for feeding them on hot days. Don't put sugar water in there because you put it at the entrance, but it's an attractive device for all of the other hives to come and rob that hive or try and get at that. So those Boardman feeders, external feeders, they're not very good.
Yeah, it's robbing bait almost, and why it's included in every kit and called a feeder. I think it's just to satisfy the word your kit has a feeder for 50 cents.
I think they just given in with the whole thing.
Right.
So those Boardman feeders.
Yeah. But the watering thing is valid.
Yeah. So
as a
you
water.
put water in there and keep it on the hive. Like now, if you have hot days, it's nice to have a Boardman feeder that's just filled with water. One of the things as well is some of my mating nukes. Now, I mated a whole series of nukes probably about a month ago. They all mated incredibly well. There are lots of drones, so that they virtually all came back nicely. And I feed those with mason jars with little holes in the bottom. So if I had to choose the ideal feeding technique for this time of year, I would almost go for a slow feed to stimulate them, but I would use the jar on the top and change it frequently. So you're not feeding huge amounts, but you're drip feeding. If you've got time and your hives are at home, I would like to do a little drip feed all the time and go all the way through. So you're stimulating brood production. So I'm completely different to Mo. I believe in having huge colonies, guaranteed to survive, huge amounts of stores. I take my hives, my main production hives, onto 100, 110 pounds. They've got so much feed, and I can put them away. I don't have to worry whether the screen's open or screen's closed or solid bottom. They just survive. They're just guaranteed. Once you've got the big cluster, they're varroa, relatively varroa free. They are sound. They really are. It's very difficult to kill them. You can make other mistakes by wrapping or not wrapping or leaving the top off. They survive. Even some of the hives, I've come back in the middle of winter and I found by mistake, I've left one of the inner covers and it was open to the air, maybe by about 2-3 inches, or maybe something had knocked it. They were all happy as anything down there. They had enough food, they survived. So if the hives are good and they're strong, they're very, very resilient. So feeding as well, and Mel says studies, this is pretty amazing. Okay, if we go back to one of the biggest studies they did, an Indian study. Remember, they're using the same honeybees that we use. They even looked at some Bangladeshi and Pakistani hives as well. And they said, what is the ideal ratio of feeding sugar water to the bees? What is the ideal ratio? And they went through everything. And what is the most economical? What gives us stimulation? What is the storage? What is everything? Except maybe not from packing food away. So the ideal that they came to with all the studies was 1 part sugar to 1.3 part water. So that's really, really interesting. Again,
say that number again.
So 1 part sugar to 1.3 parts of water. So, I mean, it's very dilute. So that achieves the best for commercial beekeepers. That's the best option for stimulation and for everything. They've done other studies as well with, we see all the stuff in the bee books that says 2 to 1, you've got to do it this time of year, and 1 to 1 develops the wax production. But if we look at it, they've done another test to say, look, what happens when you feed 1 to 1 and 2 to 1? It has identical wax producing characteristics. They're both the same. So a lot of the stuff is just been perpetuated over the years.
Do they store 2 to 1 easier than they store 1 to 1?
Yeah, then they have to dehydrate it. Yeah, so it gets to the honey 18% faster.
Yeah,
so it's easier for them. So later in the season, if you haven't fed enough earlier in the season, late in the season, you feed 2 to 1. At the moment, you can be feeding 1 to 1. It's easier to mix. You throw it in. Yeah, it's nice. It works. This type of weather is beautiful for them to dehydrate that sugar water. The other thing is, what do we feed them? Okay, do we feed them honey? Do we feed them sugar water from cane sugar, beet sugar? Do we use high fructose corn syrup? What is the best? Okay, now if we take, as Mel said, look at all the studies. What is the best? Do we come to the conclusion right at the end? You feed cane sugar or beet sugar. Those two are roughly the same. White cane sugar, that's it. That's what you feed them. Okay, what about the fructose? Not that good. Okay, and again, I would not want to have that stuff in my honey by some accident. Okay, so I don't want to have that. So cane sugar, and where's the cheapest cane sugar at the moment from all the stores?
Walmart.
What is the price at Walmart?
12.50. 25-pound bag.
Per pound.
50 cents a pound.
50 cents a pound. What is the next? And that's correct. I'm buying it. What was it last year? 32 cents at Walmart. Now it is 50 cents. Okay, Costco, I'm buying from Costco. I bought 1,000 pounds yesterday and the week before another 1,000 pounds. And I'll just repeat this as we go on. That one was 52 cents, but they come with 50-pound bags, which is easier for me. It's less bags to open. But Walmart, again, is the cheapest, but just by a fraction. BJ's is 54. So often is which one is closer to you. So again, sugar cane, that's the best. Do I use organic sugar? No. Do I use darkened sugar? No. Too many impurities.
No.
Is will they overwinter better on honey or sugar water honey? Sugar water. Who proved this? Who proved that sugar water honey is better than standard honey? The Canadians. They did huge research on this and they said, okay, because the bees are up for 4 or 5 months without going out, sugar water honey is better for them. They don't need the honey. They don't want the impurities. They can cause nosema and so on. George.
You would say you put a spare soup at the bottom of the stack.
Yeah.
Do you wait and have them fill it with honey first, or you put it down there now?
I put it down there now. So I put the empty super on the bottom. And the number of reasons for doing this, number one is I don't want to store that super in my garage. Okay, I don't have space for it. So I put it at the bottom. So I have a medium super, and then I have my 2 deeps. At the moment, I have a queen excluder between the 2 deeps. Okay, which means that whatever I'm feeding is packed into the top. Okay, then what I'll do, as soon as it gets cold, I'll take all the queen excluders out. But I'm leaving that. The reason for me not having that honey super on the top is I do not want to have sugar water honey placed in the top. Okay, the bees will store in the top. I do not want to have that for fear of maybe contaminating my honey harvest next year, the following year. So remember that sugar, water, what concentration do you feed? It's not important what concentration you feed now. It is, you can feed 1 to 1, you can feed 2 to 1. I am feeding closer to 2 to 1 because it's less effort for me. So I'm taking a drum or a container full of this sugar water, and it is less effort for me to put in a higher concentration. I can fit more. What do I personally do? How much feed do I give each big production hive? I am doing maybe 12 to 16 gallons between now and the end of the season, the end of the feeding season. And remember, I am overfeeding. I want to get my hives through winter. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night in February when that huge blast of wind comes through. We're sitting with ice and snow and sleet and 50-mile-an-hour winds. I want to sleep comfortably knowing I've done the best possible thing for my hives. Now, I know they are everything's done. They've got their fondant, they've got everything, they've got their honey. They are sitting like little fat pigs in that hive. That's what I want. And I know they're going to survive. You get the feeling once everything's done, you know they're going to survive. You compare that to somebody. Okay, now let's go through the most important thing. Sorry, Mo, but let me finish this. This is one of the best things we can possibly do. Okay, we get a lot of beekeepers that will say, and I hate them when they say this. They will say, leave the fall honey for the bees, or I'm leaving the honey in the hive. The bees are not stimulated by honey in the hive. So what I do is, which I would have done a month ago, which I have done a month ago, is I extract the honey in the hive and then I put empty frames back. Okay. Then I feed to stimulate them into building. So don't just say, I'm leaving the honey. That's normally lazy beekeepers. So they've got 100 pounds of honey in there. Just leave it for them. It doesn't stimulate them. You still got the old bees. You're not creating the new bees. So put a bit of effort into it, extract the honey, and go and feed them with the winter stores. They will survive very nicely with the winter stores. Okay. So
okay, I think I have 4 minutes left.
Final word, Merrill.
Okay.
No, I was going to talk.
My going to talk. My going to talk.
You got 2 minutes.
And I just raised it. Completely different philosophy. And it's sort of interesting. My philosophy is what you're going to see thousands and thousands of colonies managed under today. We're managing in single brood boxes. This big hive, unnecessary. And this is flat out proven. I mean, this is getting deep in the number of people doing it. All of this micromanagement, unnecessary. Does that sound like a stretch? Honeybees have survived for probably millions of years on a given life pattern or in cycle and whatnot. Beginning early 1900s, early 20th century, suddenly honey production was the key word in beekeeping. And all of our equipment, our hives, our techniques were developed during that period. We basically are keeping bees from just after the Langstroth period to today. And as far as the bees overwintering on honey, well, I counter by saying, if bees have done this for 1.5 million years, I'll bet they can do it today. And now there is reason to that, because we are keeping them, we are managing. We're not micromanaging, but we are managing them. I'm only looking for 60 pounds per colony off a single box. And they can do that easily and pack that single box with honey for the winter, as I earlier said. And surprisingly, and I have friends, colleagues here who are also shocked. My goal, what I expect the honey consumption in that single box through the winter is less than 50 pounds. And I was shocked when I started moving and working with single boxes. This is the third year. And I left the amount of food that I thought they would need. And come spring, I discover they haven't even touched it. What's going on? And the colony is strong, unbelievably strong, fantastic buildup and whatnot. So, in summary,
we'll just run one box.
Follow Bee Chat. We talk about this. It's not uncommon. Ed is working with a single brood box also. A lot of our, how can I say, our source of inspiration and guidance on this would be 3 YouTube channels, the one being Ian Stepler, and I anticipate that we will see or hear Ian Stepler at the next conference. I think it would be a wonderful thing, and I will push for that. The second, and also for the conference, would be Bob Binney. He's down in Georgia and runs a few thousand colonies, as does Ian. Interesting, Ian's in Saskatchewan. He winters indoors. But his mentor is called Phil the Bee Man, a creative name. And Phil runs something like 1,500 to 2,000 colonies, and he's 3rd generation. Phil is unique. Phil looks at the world in a very pragmatic sense, and he appears to be a hillbilly. He is a professor at the University of Manitoba, teaching, well, I can't remember, very esoteric type thing. But anyway, free resources for good information to start to put together a plan to greatly reduce the amount of manipulation and time required for each colony. And for me, as you can see, I'm not as old as I'm older than I used to be. So it's reduction of labor, better health for the bees. So check it out. Thank you.
Okay, Ed, questions, topics. What should we do? Howard, Don. Hive beetles reduce the amount of space. Yeah, so if you've got 3 deeps, take a deep off, freeze it. And okay, the interesting thing about beetles, okay, number one, do you see the larval stage of the beetles? Do you see the little worms? Yeah. Okay, because often you get a lot of beetles, but you don't see the larval stage. Now, what a lot of beekeepers are looking at, they're looking at, you know, they're thinking they've done wrong. But what these beetles do is, it's not only in hives. I mean, they're going into people's compost heaps, and that's where they generate the beetles. So it's not only in a beehive, it's in external areas. And what happens with that is they then come fly into the colony. So sometimes you have the beetles and you only see the black beetles. Pardon? Yeah, the adult will fly miles. So they might be coming from, so they're breeding in other areas. They're not breeding in your hive necessarily. Obviously, if you leave too much space, they will breed in your hive. But if you see the larval stage, they're breeding in your hive. But then it means that you need to reduce your hive so that the bees that are there can manage it. And there's some areas that are bad. Some apiary sites are really good. The beetles cannot take hold, other ones. And there are 2 reasons. Number one, the soil type. And number 2, the proximity to their breeding. They might be breeding in compost heaps. Yeah.
Let's go to show and tell. We're gonna, for those of you who want to hang out, there's still plants for sale. And we're gonna go to show and tell really quick. Once I don't know. So there are still plants, obviously. If you want to take home plants, that'd be great. Show and tell. I'm going to start. I'm going to show and tell some candles. Well, come here. Come up. Walt and I decided to make some candles, or experimenting with making candles. I don't know if anyone's candle makers in here or not. Does anyone make candles?
Yeah.
Some. So I read online that it's good to add coconut oil into the beeswax, so it burns a little less hot, and it doesn't tunnel in the candle. So when you burn the candle, it just doesn't tunnel down in a 100% pure beeswax candle. So we ended up doing an experiment, right, Walt? So this one that looks more white was 1 part coconut oil to 1 part beeswax. And this one that kind of looks more yellow at the top was 2 part beeswax and 1 part coconut oil.
Why is that one green?
And then we did. Anyone know how this is beeswax. Anyone know how we made that green?
I have no idea.
Crayon, yeah, crayon. So I wanted it blue, so I added a blue crayon to the dissolved wax, and I don't know why it made it green, but that's what happened to it.
Yellow and blue make green.
So does anyone, when they make candles, does anyone add anything to their beeswax, or they just make 100% beeswax candles?
100% for me.
100%? 100%? 100%?
But I will say that depending on where you gather your wax, you'll get totally different colors. If you segregate the wax, you'll get really light, or kind of that perfect yellow that you see there in the middle, top of the middle candle. Yeah. And then as you get the new wax, it's really white, and you get old wax and it's kind of this brownish. Yeah, it's got propolis in it. Exactly. Yeah.
So Walt took these home and burned them just to test them. What did you find?
That the beeswax burned better.
That the more beeswax burned better. So
the one that had more coconut oil and the flame was the other problem is I didn't cut the wicks evenly, so that could have been a problem.
We're not candle scientists.
Yeah, there is a ratio. Yeah. Right. Right.
So what we need in the future, maybe next month, is somebody who really knows how to make candles come and talk to us about how to do this, because it was kind of fun to do. Yes, Don. Guys, please, I can't.
Everybody's having a side conversation. Would you please take it somewhere else?
Yeah,
because it's picking up.
Yeah, I don't mind the side conversations, because that's fine. That's why we're here. But just so we can hear and the people online can hear.
Just to try to move balls that you have pull the thread around and split it. And the molded panel comes out. The silicone.
Silicone. Yeah. So anyway, some candles. And we you know, that's why you save your wax, right? Part of the reason you can re-wax your frames, or you can, yeah, some people use it to re-wax their frames. But if you buy the triple wax plastic foundation, you really don't need to wax that. So they will draw that just fine if it's triple wax. Now, putting an extra coat of wax on ain't gonna hurt it. But, you know, I bought a bunch of triple wax this year just to see it for myself, and I had no problems with them drawing out at least the acorn stuff that's triple wax. So anyway, that's one of the things I got to share. You want to share, Mark?
Sure.
Mark's got a much cooler share. And if anybody has anything to share, we'll just keep coming up and sharing whatever. Howard's always good to share something. So
let's see.
You can sit right here if you want.
Okay, I'm just going to move you right over a little bit. Okay. So anybody know what honey sticks are? Honey straws? How to make them? This is one of the ways you do it. Because they cost about 300 and change. That's how. Round. Yeah, exactly. So basically the way that this thing works is you put about a quart of honey in here, fill it up to the max line. You insert the straws. You pump up the pressure on the honey goes over here, and these valves, you basically turn them on one at a time, and honey rises up. You stop about a quarter inch from the top all the way across. And then what I didn't bring was the sealer. So a standard commercial sealer, you seal the top, then you slide it all the way up to the very end. And as you press, you pull it out, and you've got 9 straws. And you can do about 100 to 200 straws an hour of your own honey. Because if you buy straws already made, it's somebody else's honey. You have no idea where that honey came from.
So is this device specifically for filling straws?
It is specifically, some guy in Kansas looked at this and went, I don't want to spend $1,500 for a straw making device, because that's how much the commercial ones are. The low cost ones, the more expensive ones, are thousands of dollars. What's that? Yeah, he was sold out.
Where's that?
Online.
All right, I can do that.
But Ed could clearly do this. This is just stuff right out of the plumbing department, and and a pumper.
Very cool.
The sold out concept. I also had one of those, and he makes them up to order. So if you sold out, you won't have to wait long.
No. Yeah.
Cool.
You could. We do the whole sticks, because frankly, it's just as easy to do a whole stick. I sell them for a quarter a piece, 5 for $1. And if somebody's standing there going, well, I don't know if I really want the spring, the summer, or the late summer honey, because they're 3 different colors. Well, grab that stick, and well, if they're going to buy the jar of honey, fine, here, have a stick.
And you can put it in your kid's lunchbox, maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, Merle's got something to share. Bring it. Mark, can you help Merle? Or you got it, Merle?
Oh, yeah.
Merle got a big share.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about mites today. See, we can get a meeting without talking about mites, but I'm going to talk about mites really quick. Do something about your mites this month.
Just
either make sure your mite levels are less than 2%, or treat your hives. I mean, it's crucial right now to address your varroa so your hives survive the winter. There's a brief commercial.
Okay, let me, maybe some folks will have to stand up, or just walk around after we finish here. One of my goals in beekeeping is labor saving. This goes hand in hand with that system of the single box, food box. And then typically I have 2 medium super on top of that. This could be used for conventional tall. It lifts up like so high. But this is commercially available, a portion of it. I modified it to make it more stable. To roll, I have some periods where so that's why you see the homemade modifications on it, but it can be bought. If you do purchase one, absolutely go the electric, and I'll explain why. But how this works.
What's this thing called? Beehive Lifter. BeehiveLifter.com. Oh, right there.
It's called BeehiveLifters.com.
Someone who knows marketing.
Because it costs too much. Do it in Barrett or not. How this works is that I'm going to run up to a column to let this run out.
Do you need help? Or you good?
Yeah, maybe. Oh. And I'm going to run up. The bottom goes against the box and it goes down like so. And let's say there's a second box on here. What happens is it's going to be. You can imagine that this sliding down, it's going to, as I lift it forward, it's going to slide right to the bottom. All I have to do is, yeah, that can work. That can work. That can work.
Don Coates come through. Thanks. He was using a medium super as a chair. Gotta love it.
I'm going to run it up to the column. I'm going to push it forward.
Yeah,
let's weight in it.
Let's put some weight on it.
What's that? Oh, I've got to see now. All right, I'm going to go forward like so. And down one more. Down one more. And then I'm going to hit the up button. I don't know if the handle's on these bars. Try that. No, hang on. It would don't wait also. It's not working. It's pushing. This is the factor of everything being loose and no weight involved in the box. So I'm going to come forward. So I'm going to show up against the box. Up against the box. Like so. And
oh, you need to push it up further. Merle. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Now bring it up.
Okay, now after, again, with no weight, it's hope. I can just toggle those in. Normally, this is all automatic. You don't have to, like your finger.
Yeah.
On my box, you have to go through any of this. We'll
assume we got it there. It would normally hook into the handle hole.
Yeah, but depending on the box, see it's adjustable here. Fine adjustment.
Here, now they're locked in.
Okay, there you go. It's locked in, and with my boxes, it's adjusted for those. I simply go to the colony, bump it on the bottom, push it vertical. These will go below the handle, hit the up button, and I have the box. And you can let go of it at that point, and the whole business is going to stand there just like that. The reason for having the electric is that I need to turn this into a two-hand operation rather than three, because I have a hive tool right here. And with it glued together, I'm simply going to take the hive tool, come down here, put a little bit of up pressure and pop it with the hive tool. And it'll break the boxes loose from the lower boxes. And at that point, I tip it back right there and it's stable. I can walk away from it. I can I can roll it back slightly, whatever needs to be done. I can run it forward on the high, pick it up, run it down the dogs disengage. Okay, the dogs are disengaged automatically. Because again, with weight in the box, everything's stable. Dogs are disengaged, I'm going to tick back, away. And these are a number of companies built these. All of them cost more than they should. I guess we're acceptable. Of course, it's not a big deal. Something over that. I did the electric conversion myself because I have this just sort of lying around in my garage. I had to use it for another project, so that is it. And there's a lot of backbreaking work.
It could be a game changer for some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could be a game changer for some people.
Oh, it is. Well, it is for me, really.
Sure.
And you know, so I can go up and grab double D. There's or double D plus 2 light supers. I want to get in the bottom box. I'm going to do it just as quick as I would if I was taking it on the box. There's no bag right.
So why did you decide to continue to go the vertical versus the horizontal hive, Merle?
Very good question. And I would have to say, I've asked myself the same question. Okay, because
just out of interest.
Well, okay.
I mean, beekeepers don't change easily.
Yeah, well, because this is the way I always go. In the meantime, this is sort of a tangent. I've been a traditional beekeeper 1965. And with this natural beekeeping around, I started seeing I did a master program with University of Montana in a master beekeeping program. We touched on honeybee biology, behavior, and whatnot, and I started questioning that maybe the natural beekeepers, natural horizontal are usually tied together, but you sort of can't see that. And I started thinking about horizontals, like I'm trying to discriminate with them, but I'm not talking about them.
Yeah, that brings up something in my mind. We're gonna do a Hiroshi, Lynn, and Diane, and somebody else do this horizontal. There's a group of beekeepers in the club that have this horizontal connection. They're a small group, and they get together every once in a while and look at different horizontal hives. And I've asked them to do a Zoom this month. Sort of, we're going to go out to one of their horizontal hives and do a live broadcast of them talking about horizontal hives. So that'll probably be at some point this month. So it'll be great to hear from the users of them, you know, about that as an option.
Watch your head. That natural beekeeping motivation was just that motivation to do a natural beekeeping program with the University of Montana also. And they taught the program is based on Tom Steele's work.
Question? With some help. So yeah, so unfortunately the top bar had a dead queen in it. So we ended up, there was another hive. It had about 5 frames of live bees in it. And we found a queen from another hive that basically only had this many bees around a queen. So we added the queen, and it's now queen right, and they took the queen. So it'll be interesting to see. That hive was loaded with bees, though. There were so many dead bees in that hive, it was sad to see. But yeah, it's alive, but with some help.
Yeah, and the horizontal hive, after doing that program, we had to do a project.
George. You would think that would be like an arc, right? Kind of float down the, float down.
A project based on our interpretation of the ideal.
1136.
Using the ideal parameters. Defining what their research showed either way the natural environment.
Howard wanted to share.
It's right behind you.
And the horizontal hive lends itself well to achieving some of those natural concepts or needs and whatnot. My thoughts are at the moment is horizontal hives are really practical. They're not going to make it break your beekeeping success for sure. But as far as lifting ability and sheer amount of work and whatnot, I think the horizontal hives deserve a lot of attention. I really do. I really do.
Cool. Thanks, Merle. Howard? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to make sure I get everybody in. Sorry, Merle.
Yeah, anyone is welcome to try to sit around.
I'm actually cheating and using this time to get rid of stuff. This is the makings of a cloak board with an upper entrance. You could put a solid sheet in there with a queen scooter under it. For 8 frames, you block off the hive temporarily and make it 2. Yeah. And then you can pull the sheet out and have it all one hive again. If anybody wants part of a queen excluder, because I've been cutting them in half. I showed this last month. Well, cleaning up, I found another one. So obviously my grandfather didn't make it. But if anybody wants it, feel free.
Yeah. And this harkens back to the beach act. Because
this is a drone, yeah.
We were talking the challenge that Jordan was having, coming up with hundreds of drones.
20 people on the street.
For his dissemination project. And I think I said, well, why don't you just use the mic?
Use the mic over there.
Everyone was sort of stunned. And Howard has also been in beekeeping all the way back into the early 70s and whatnot. And
late 50s.
Late 50s, okay. And we recall seeing these things. And there it is.
So this is a queen excluder for a 2-frame nuke, you know, so all of you guys running 2-frame nukes. Thanks, Howard. The honey producers that 2-frame nukes are. This is a very simple cloak board design, which is terrific. I still think it's the best way to raise queens. I know people have gone to the Joe Clemens box and the queenless box to make queens. I think queens are much better made in a cloak board device. Just better quality queens at the end of the day. So if anybody is interested in raising some queens, this is a very helpful, simple device to do it. If nobody wants this, I'm going to keep it for the club, so we can catch our drones. Because the more drone catchers we have, the better. So anyway, anything else that anybody wants to share? If anybody has an experience, whether or not it be something physical or something that they've done this week or this month with their bees. Anything? No.
I do have a float frame that has honey on it. If you want to see.
Sure. For those people that have never seen a flow frame can actually collect honey. As you'll see, not much. No, I'm just kidding. I also know. Anyway, that's another story. And I welcome any input that people have about meeting design. This is the second time we've sort of done this sort of business panel discussion, a breakout group, and then show and tell. So any thoughts on that would be great. So
this is a flow frame out of a flow hive, and you'll notice this one actually came out of the apiary. So it got a little wet.
A little wet, yes.
A little wet, like under 6 feet of water. And it was sitting on the hive about this high. So it was definitely underwater, but that's what it looks like. And I'll pass it around for anybody that wants to just take it and pass it. It's a little wet. There might be some bees. Not too many bees, fortunately. So the concept of the, thank you. The concept of the flow hive frames is that it's made of plastic. The cells are made of plastic. The bees come in and fill the space between each cell just to finish it off. And I mean, it's just a little tiny bit of plastic wax. And then when you're ready to harvest, you basically shove a tube in the bottom. There's a key that you slide in and turn, and that breaks every other cell. So it slides it up. So the cell looks like this, and when you turn the key, the cell looks like that. Because of the down tilt on the cells, it all goes to the back. The honey goes down the middle of the frame and out the bottom channel, which means you do have to have a back tilt on the hive. So whether you run them with the back tilt all the time or just when you harvest, you tilt it, you have to have that tilt, otherwise it all goes to the front and doesn't come out. I pull, generally speaking, a half a gallon to 3/4. I think the most I've ever pulled off of one frame was a gallon. I use half-gallon ball jars to collect the honey, and it comes out. It's interesting. I this year the spring honey that I harvested off the flow hive was almost perfectly clear. The stuff that I had spun off using the centrifuge actually was a little murky. And why would that be? You're getting air and particulates as you're spinning out the honey. And so even though it will settle eventually, it doesn't seem to settle as quickly. And to me, even now, months later, the flow hive honey was clearer off the same hive, pulled at the same time. Then
it doesn't crystallize as much too.
It may not. I would say that the crystallization has more to do with the fructose to sucrose, but it could be. I don't know.
So Don Coates was nice enough to donate some old bee books. So these are going to go to the library, just so people know. We do have a library that's now being kept by John Federoff. I think the list is somewhere on the website. So if you're interested in taking out any bee books to read, John probably has them. So John Federoff is our new librarian, and he'll get these. Thank you, Don. No, and Jen Shannon's not here. You're not the first person that has told me that it's hard to find the list, so I need to look at that.
Appreciate it.
Does anyone know where the library list is easily on the website? No. Okay. I will either find her or ask. Jen Shannon is our website person, so good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Cool. Anything? Anybody else have anything to share? Anything? We did this through a solar wax melter. So we piled a bunch of wax on the top of a solar wax melter and let it go through and let it go through a screen, and it was clean enough. No, but our solar wax melter has a very long metal. So we find like the key to it is to have a long metal slide, basically, that the wax has to travel a good distance down, so the particles get stuck on along the way as the wax goes down. So the distance from the top to the bottom was about 2 feet. So maybe that distance helps with rendering wax. So maybe there's I'm sure you could put it in water and do it that way. Yeah. But we do need a breakout session on wax at one of these meetings. Maybe when we go indoors, we can sort of do that. Well, there's nothing else. A couple really final thoughts. One, there's too many plants there. So if you haven't bought some plants, or you probably need a few more plants, take them home. 9:25 is the gala. So hopefully we'll see a bunch of people at the gala. The you'll look at the registration will be up on the homepage in the next day or two. And
thank you.
Thank you. That's it.
For food.
What?
Food plants.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, Carla on the plants. Big thank you to Carla and Jesse, and Carla specifically for being here and doing plants. And thank you to Pat and Stephanie and Pat for doing the food wherever they are, and everybody else who helps. And not forgetting our tech crew. This is Chris and Mark and Rick, and they've done a fabulous job this year at seamlessly sort of transmitting all this via Zoom for people that want to join but don't want to be in person. So again, thanks so much for that work. And again, I don't want to end on a negative note, but when the ask goes out, please consider, you know, helping out, even if it's only for a couple hours. It's much appreciated. And that's all I got. So thanks. See you next month. Is the same second Saturday of the month. So whatever the second Saturday of October, and it's still an outdoor meeting. So we will be here from 9 to 12 in October. I don't know yet. That building's still closed. Yeah, so that building is still closed. So they're not having any public meetings in there right now. So we may be gathering here in jackets, maybe, you know.
There's fireplaces.
So this may be our winter outdoor meeting space, you know. So we'll see. Again, if anybody has thoughts, you know, my barn's always open. You can drop me an email. You can, you know, let me know. I mean, this is sort of everybody's club. So if you guys have ideas on how to make it better, just let me know. Good. See ya.